Why does the world care more about this war in Europe and much less about other wars in Africa and other parts of the world? Is this racism? Or is it that the risks of this war and the global implications of this war are much greater? How would you respond to that?
Well, I would have a two-part response to it. The first is that the moral stakes in the Ukraine invasion are much clearer than in other kinds of conflicts. Where you had a peaceful democracy that was not threatening its neighbor, and then is subject to a massive, military aggression across a universally recognized international frontier. Many of the conflicts in Africa have not been of that sort. I mean, Nigeria didn't get up one day and decide to take over, Benin and Togo and, a bunch of its neighbors. That's really the equivalent, act that would have taken place. A lot of Africa's conflicts have been civil wars, and so like the conflict in the DRC, which was incredibly bloody and, I think was wrongly ignored by a lot of the outside world, was an extremely complex, internal civil war that, where the rights and wrongs were, much less clear in certain ways. Now, there have been conflicts in sub-Saharan Africa that do have the same degree of moral clarity as the one in Ukraine. I would say the Rwandan genocide back in the early 90s was one of them. And I think it was a huge moral failure on the part of the West not to have intervened. By the time it happened, it was probably too late to have an intervention. They really need to have paid much more attention ahead of time, because people that were observing, what had happened in that country leading up to the massacre, should have known that it would take, a substantial intervention, peacekeeping force, and the Western world and the UN Security Council in general simply weren't willing to support that kind of intervention, and so that was wrong. That was morally wrong not to do that. So I think those are the two reasons. I do think that the West, does need to pay more attention to conflicts in other parts of the world, but I do think that the grossness of the Russian action is really quite extraordinary, and I don't think it has a lot of counterparts in other parts of the world.